Hi everybody, Buffin here. I just tried to do a video about baptism and heaven, and I ran out of space. So, baptism, take two. I've done a series of videos on the kingdom of heaven, two or three now, and this one's about baptism because baptism is often associated with Christianity and heaven as a ritual, kind of like an admission into heaven. Specifically, baptism would refer to washing away one's sins to be fit for heaven, to enter heaven. In most conceptions, I'm probably oversimplifying. But one interesting thing I wanted to say about baptism is that in regards to the kingdom of heaven being at hand, not an afterlife experience, but something that is part of our lives, water is life, is where I got cut off in my last video. That we're reminded of this from the No Dakota Access Pipeline protests and people's awareness spreading around the world that water is life. The kingdom of heaven is life. It's not just water, but water is a really great way of thinking about it. Our bodies, we're 70% water inside, so we're mostly made up of water. I'm sitting here soaking in a pool of water right now, but there's also water and moisture in the air that we breathe. It's just part of everything on this planet, part of all of our experience. And a great analogy for this spirit, this ubiquitous life that is within everything and concentrated even more in different forms. So I think this is one reason baptism is such a powerful ritual, is because you're immersing yourself in water for the baptism, immersing yourself in life, and charging all of that with religious importance. When I took religion courses at UGA, I had two professors, and I wanted to mention them both because I'm not sure which one taught me this, but it was an important thing to learn. Emily Chaney taught me feminist early Christianity, and Sandy Martin taught me slave religions and the religion of American slaves. Both were very great courses, but I'm not sure who specifically mentioned that when Christianity was in Africa, probably Sandy Martin because of the African roots of the slave traditions. Christianity took off pretty well in Africa, partially because of the baptism ritual and how many people in African religions could relate to that because they had a water ritual. And I apologize, I don't remember the name of the African god or goddess that was invoked or part of this water ritual, but they had the same ritual of immersing yourself in water, what we would call a baptism, as an initiation or a cleansing ceremony, something like this. And the last thing I want to say about baptism and it as a symbol or a indicator of going to heaven or entering heaven is that in the context of heaven being here on earth and heaven within us and heaven around, heaven near at hand, not just an after-death experience, but something that we are all continually potentially participating in, then heaven is the mindset that you're in. And to forgive yourself to enter the best mindset is something we can all do. Lady Gaga says to be reborn every day. Baptism is seen as a rebirth, being born again. But you can do that more than once, and maybe doing it as a ritual, as a process, will help maintain that focus on the kingdom of heaven that is here, not for the future, not for a plan, but for now, and to access and make the most of heaven now. So being reborn is a good conception of how you're forgiven, because the other really important message of Christianity and Jesus is forgiveness, and how you're forgiven to enter a better life. This is why I think it's so important to use the reborn every day phrase, is that, hey, we can suffer from the consequences or regrets of the past, or we can start anew on a new day. Things can be bad, but we can start anew on a new day and change, and we can change dramatically. We can completely transform. And sometimes that's just what you need to do. And maybe you need to do that today or tomorrow, or maybe you need to do that soon, or have needed to do that for years. And maybe you'll even need to do it again after that. So there's no end to it. It's limitless. And one of the only limits is that if we don't start, we don't go anywhere. So I wanted to make these videos to open up these conversations. The last thing I'll say about baptism and forgiveness of sins, because this gets into a whole lot of other topics, is that as I was getting ready to make this video, I wanted to look up and make sure I got Emily Cheney and Sandy Martin's name correctly, because it's been, 20 years since I was in college. But when I went to look it up, the first thing that came up on Google was explaining a scene of Starship Troopers. And I was curious. I had to read what it was about. And it was about their shower scene and how they have a shower scene and the things they discuss. The ultimate gist of the article was that the director was criticizing the author, Robert Heinlein's fascist worldview and presenting his ideas, because he's the one who wrote the book that the movie was based on, but presenting them in an ironic or critical way, satirical way, so that to make fun of the ideas or to give people the criticism of, and saying that a lot of people lost that message of the movie. But in the scene, it's a shower scene where the co-ed soldiers are discussing why they enlisted, and it mentions some of the motivations and how they relate to our current modern situation. People want healthcare, people want citizenship, things like this. But it also mentions how they never look at each other. And don't worry, I'm not going to pan down in my bath. You're safe. But the people don't look at each other. And it's a function of fascism that they don't respond to their libidos, or that they don't have any sexuality. And I don't remember that feature of the movie because, what's her name's hot. Like, there's some hot people in there, and you have your own experience of sexuality, even if the characters don't. And maybe you just don't even notice that they don't seem to be that sexual. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie too. But my point is that this relates to what I think is the strongest power and the strongest misuse of power in our culture is to demonize sexuality. And the example of this that relates to baptism is that some cultures, some religious traditions baptize babies. And as far as the idea of your baptism, in the tradition I grew up in, people choose to get baptized at some date in their life, because that personal choice is part of the the forgiveness process, to recognize, hey, I've sinned in my life, I need to be forgiven. It doesn't seem to apply to babies. So, but again, I'm not trying to criticize some of this tradition. I'm just trying to say, what does it mean the way we employ these traditions and beliefs? And if you baptize a baby, then you're saying, I want to, wash away the original sin, the initial sin. And this is where I think we get a big mistake and problem in Christianity. And one reason I pretty much left Christianity at age 11, that the demonization of sex and the body, and therefore the feminine, is usually included in that, because women represent giving birth and the body. That putting down the body is bad is a very corrupting and terrible stream for Christianity to go on, and I think is the source of a lot of our problems. I'm going to make more videos about this idea for sure, but I just wanted to include it here to say that baptizing babies implies that you believe, and lots of people do believe, that there's an original sin, or that there's a primary sin underneath everything that has to do with sex, or has to do with the physical body. And I just want to say, for the record, sex is good, the body is good, life is good. And that you have to undo these types of ideas by telling everybody the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's not an after death thing. It's not a let's store up for this. It's a let's make it now. Let's take advantage of it now. So I'll have a lot more to say about that, but I wanted to include this while I'm doing this baptism themed thing in the bath. And mostly, if I didn't mention it, I wanted just to say how it's life, and water is life. Great, I mentioned it. Great analogy for being within us, all around us, and being able to get more into it, which I think is why water always has the emotional, spiritual, mystical associations. And I appreciate it being part of the inspiration for this video. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. Have a great day.